All right, gentlemen, welcome to lecture number 9, where we're going to finish talking about Moses' adventures with the burning bush, and probably the most important part of what Moses learns in that conversation, and that is God's name. Now, you'll see I've got 4 questions circled. Number 8, why is God's name I am? Why would he not say Yahweh? Number 10, why the God of Jacob, etc., or et al., which means and others. So it's the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Number 11, why is this moment significant? And number 13, why would God say, I am sent you, which are the same words Jesus uses in the New Testament? Now, I actually want to begin with number 10. Let's make sure we stretch that one out. So this is the God of Abraham. Make sure you write this down, okay? The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Now, remember that we talked about how there are 2 different kinds of gods in the ancient world, right? There are family gods or personal gods, okay? And gods of geography, like a geographic god, or a god of location. Now, what we're dealing with when we talk about the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob is a family god, which is another way of saying that he is a personal god, okay? A personal god. So it is really important that this being who speaks to Abraham from the bush connects himself to the Hebrews' family God, the Hebrews' personal God. So what that tells Moses, and therefore what it tells the Hebrew people in Egypt, is that this divine being who has sent Moses to free them from slavery is the same divine being whom their forefathers knew and with whom they interacted, okay? So that first of all, the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob is a personal God. He's a family God. We might say that he is the God of the patriarchs. If you don't know what patriarch means, it's basically a fancy word that means fathers, the God of the fathers. Okay, in this case, the fathers of Israel. And so, we're also then dealing very much with the God of the Bible. Okay. So both of these begin with the God of. And if you haven't gotten that written down, pause this video now because I'm about to erase it. Okay. So that was number 10. And we will mark that one off. So why does God say his name is I am? Why would he not say Yahweh? Well, he did. He did say Yahweh. It's just that we're reading it in translation. So when God says, I am who am, or sometimes we'll see it as I am who I am, notice this is not really a name. God is not really giving Moses a name. He's telling Moses something about himself. Now, in Hebrew, what you have is these letters, YH, WH, which we usually translate as Yahweh. Okay? And it is related to this Hebrew verb of haya, and that means to be. So, in Spanish, it would be a star, something like that, to be. So, that's where we get this I am idea out of it. Now, the idea, though, the connotation is that I exist. I am. Not I was, not I will be, but I am. And even something like this: I walk beside you. Or simply, I am with you. You are not alone. The Hebrews in their enslavement in Egypt are not alone. Okay? That's what's buried in the idea Yahweh. Now, we've got some more things that we're going to bring out of this momentarily, but for right now, we're just going to answer these questions. Okay, now, same thing as before, as I go in here to erase some of these things so we can get clarity again. If you need to write it down, pause it, although we're going to see a lot of this again momentarily. Okay, so number 13, why would God say, I am sent you, which are the same words Jesus uses in the New Testament? Brilliant. I'm so glad that you asked that question. Jesus is speaking with God's authority, because of course he is God. So he very purposely uses the I am in the New Testament. And if you look at that in John's Gospel especially, you'll notice that there are sometimes tremors when Jesus says it, like when he's being arrested and all the men fall down. This is one reason, so like when the soldiers come and they say, are you Jesus of Nazareth? And Jesus says, I am. You and I are like, all right, fine, he just admitted it. But for the temple guards, that's basically blasphemy, because Jesus has used the personal name of God and taken it for himself. So that's why that happens. Now that leaves us number 11. Why is this moment significant? This moment is significant because it is God's movement in history to win back to himself the Israelite people, through whom he promised Abraham he would bless the world, and from whom, of course, the Messiah and Jesus of Nazareth would arrive. It is also when he makes it clear, or begins to make it clear, that the world is structured, it is ordered, and that it is ordered by his laws, that he knows what is good for us and what can bring us happy and fruitful lives. And so he begins the great process of shaping the people, right, of teaching us how to be more like him, and really built more on community and on love. Now, we tend to focus on the rules, but that's when we miss the point of the rules. The point of the rules is, well, to love, and to love freely. So this is where God begins to show that the whole world is his family, right? And by giving Moses the name I am, which isn't really a name, but nonetheless, it makes God invocable. That means it gives us a way to call on him. If you've ever been out in a store or any place else and heard someone yell your name, and only to find out that he or she was not speaking to you, then you know the power of the name. If you've ever had your mother or father use more than one of your names, you know the power of the name. If you've ever tried to help somebody but not known that person's name, like he left a book in class and you run out in the hallway and you say, hey kid, you 14-year-old kid wearing a tie and you got a short haircut. Oh, welcome to about 190 other people, right? But if you say, hey Tom, then he turns around. Well, God has given us a name. He has given himself a name by which we can call him. Okay, well, let's look at a few other things regarding all of this before we call it a day. So here are just a few points that can help us kind of think a little bit more about the burning bush episode. First, did you notice when God first spoke to Moses, Moses kind of hesitated, and he even said, whom shall I say sent me? Now, I have here that the world is polytheistic, but it would be more to the point, wouldn't it, to say that it's henotheistic? Okay? So, once again, if you forget that, and some of your questions suggested that you did forget that, then try to remember it and jump back into Moses' shoes. I mean, he just came from Egypt where there is a pantheon, there's a plenitude of gods. He's not accustomed to thinking of there being just one God. He is accustomed to thinking of there are gods in particular regions and gods of families. So it's a perfectly legitimate question. Well, who are you? Whom shall I say sent me? Now, if you look at the third bullet point, we got this really long word, tetragrammatron. Go ahead and say it. It's fun to say. Ready? Tetragrammatron. 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 Okay. Well, when I was a kid, there was a game I liked to play called Tetris. And one of the goals of that game was to make lines. You had these blocks falling from the sky, and you would try to make lines. And you would get bonus points if you could get a Tetris, 4 lines. Get 4 lines in a row filled up. So tetra means 4, okay? 4. And gamma, well, that says grammatron, but I'm finding out that I've got some typos in there. It should be gammatron, not grammatron, tetragrammatron. The tetragrammatron, so we've got letters in the Greek alphabet, alpha, beta, gamma. Do you know I've been using these slides since 2015, and no one's ever pointed out that typo to me. Well, anyway, tetragrammatron. Gamma is a third letter in the Greek alphabet, so really this just means letters, the 4 letters. So tetragrammatron is a really fancy way to talk about YHWH. That will be on your test. Write it down. Tetragrammatron equals YHWH. Pause this video if you need to. Just make sure you get it. So it's probably helpful to know that in the Old Testament, in Hebrew, there are no vowels, no spaces, no lowercase letters. Okay, so everything appears kind of like that, right? You just kind of have to know what you're looking for. So when we write out Yahweh, we're kind of just guessing based upon Haya and how that works, okay, that to be verb. But I mentioned that this is the holy name of God, okay? So the Jews, or the Hebrews, Jews today, would use the name Yahweh only on very special occasions. Okay, this is why the Catholic Church several years ago, say around, 2011, 2013, something like that, asked its parishes no longer to sing songs with the name Yahweh in it. Now, we don't want to be seen as being frivolous. So historically, the Jewish faith uses the word Yahweh only on the feast of Yom Kippur. In English, this is called the Day of Atonement, and it is a day that the Jewish people speak the personal name of God and ask for his mercy and forgiveness. And much as with Passover, a year-old unblemished lamb would be sacrificed. And as a matter of fact, in some of the oldest rituals, that lamb or goat would ritually receive the sins of the people before being sacrificed. And the King James authorized version of Scripture calls this lamb or goat the scapegoat. Maybe you've heard of that word before. If you are a scapegoat, you have taken the blame for other people. Okay? Well, if you're putting this together, Jesus is our scapegoat, right? Jesus has taken the sins of the world upon him. So he is our scapegoat. So anyway, if the Hebrews used the personal name of God only on Yom Kippur, only on the Day of Atonement, Well, then what do they call him otherwise? And what do they call him in Scripture? The point is, guys, that they don't want to abuse his name. They don't want to waste it. Think of it from this perspective. Let's say you have a friend who talks and 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 talks. At some point, you probably just stop paying attention. Am I right? I bet I am. Now you have a friend who hardly ever says anything. When he talks, do you pay attention to him? I bet you do. So in that way, the idea is let's not use the Lord's name with frivolity. Let's use it sparingly so that it's special when we speak. And that's, it's so that we know it's special, okay? Well, so anyway, what they call him instead is Adonai, okay? And it means Lord. So if you've ever been reading the Bible and you've noticed where it will say the Lord in all caps and then God, the Hebrew behind it is, one more. The Hebrew behind that is actually Adonai Yahweh, okay? So Adonai means Lord, and they're going to call him Adonai instead of calling him Yahweh, right? And so they'll just read over the Tetragrammaton and read Adonai instead. Now, in the 17th, 16th, and 17th centuries, some German scholars got the markings for Adonai and Tetragrammaton mixed up, and that's where you wind up with Jehovah. Okay, Jehovah did not exist as a word until like the 1600s, so fairly new. Okay. Well, look at your first bullet point here. Yahweh is an ancient name for Israel's God, but older still is El or Elohim. So El, I think we've talked about this before, it means God. And look at this I am on Elohim. Remember talking about the seraphim yesterday? Well, Elohim then technically is gods. So that's what you might be able to write down here in your notes. Is Elohim is technically plural, but for Israel it means God who is the totality of divinity. There is no no other divinity in the world or in creation than God. He is all that is divine. All that is divine. Elohim. It's kind of like using usted in Spanish to talk with someone to show respect. Right, let's pluralize it. So you'll usually see God referred to as Elohim in Scripture. I've pointed out here that we've got these names with El in them. Michael means, it's a question, who is like God? We've got a little interrobang at the end there. Interrobang is what you call it when you've got a question mark and an exclamation mark mixed together. And the story there is that Satan decides to rebel, and he says, I'm like God. And Michael, this archangel, goes, well, who's like God? Not you. That's how he gets his name, Michael. Who's like God? Okay, so make sure you write down Elohim. And so you've got that definition here right again. Elohim is grammatically plural, but it means everything that is divine. And Elohim is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So again, the whole idea here is that we're mixing up this person, or showing an equation between the personal God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and this more philosophical definition of God as the great I am. Okay? People like Plato, for example, had argued that there must be a being beyond the Olympian gods, a being who simply is, and is not fickle and not like a human being. So, since Yahweh is that philosophical God, or that philosopher's God. Okay, so again, pause this if you need to write something down. But this is what you'll see on your test for Elohim. Okay? So, if you don't have that, get it now. And here's what I just said. The burning bush unites the ancient personal God of the fathers with a kind of statement of being. And you'll see that show up perhaps as well on your test. And then we mentioned this already too, that Yahweh provides Israel with a way to call God personally. And if you were to read these stories, you would see examples of people asking for a name. And, there's not really one provided. But in Exodus 3, we get very, very close with, listen, dude, I am. Unlike these other gods, I am. Or as Jesus will say in the New Testament, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. Now, at the end of it, here's what we're getting. Remember, we began talking about Baal or Moloch with the binding of Isaac. And what we learn here is that Elohim, or Yahweh, is not like Baal or Moloch. He is near, right? He is the God of each person, okay? Yahweh reveals more fully than a statement about God as God, something about God for humanity. I am here for you. You see, God is not just a being, he is a being for. And as we are made in the image and likeness of God, we find our true happiness in being for, in living not selfishly, but selflessly. Okay, well, I hope that all of that was helpful, was interesting. I hope we got those questions answered. And I think that what we'll do is our next lesson will be a video. I'll have a video for you to watch on YouTube, although do look for this Edu Creations. We'll do a lecture number 10, during which I will talk with you about that video, and then you'll pause my lecture and go watch the video, and then come back. Okay, well, there you go, guys. I hope that you have a wonderful day. Stay always a rocket. God bless.